Excuse me, do you know why we pulled you over today? Exactly, it's because you're not subscribed. So you better fix that right now, or we're gonna have to take you in. Oh, nice. Yeah, so we're going to go into special report coming in from 9 to 5 Flippin' Mac. Can you believe that? 9 to 5 Flippin' Mac? To be honest, not to make any jokes about 9 to 5 Mac, they have had some pretty good exclusives lately. If I'm not mistaken, the whole Mac Studio and also like the Studio Display, right? The one with the Apple Silicon chip in it, which they called an eGPU or a GPU chip inside the display, was also an exclusive from 9 to 5 Mac. I feel like Luke Mignani, he finished it. He made it into something, well, more like, let's say, touchable. You like, it made it more clear what was happening. But the first rumors, I feel like, if you ask me, were coming from 9 to 5 Mac about this full scope of what was going on. I know that John Prosser obviously showed us a bigger Mac Mini, like way before that. But I feel like by then we thought it was going to be the Mac Mini Pro or something. So it really got substantiated by 9 to 5 Mac, and then Luke Mignani just finished it all. So that's great. Apple juice, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Apple juice, this is 9 to 5 Mac coming in with an exclusive, an updated Mac Mini to have versions with M2 and M2 Pro chips. So hey, let's see what they have to say. Sharon, just take the flipping stage.
Exclusive, updated Mac Mini to have versions with M2 and M2 Pro chip. Apple this week introduced Mac Studio, which is somewhat based on the Mac Mini, but with much more powerful hardware. But that doesn't mean it's the end of Mac Mini. As rumors point to a new redesigned Mac Mini coming soon, 9 to 5 Mac has learned from sources that Apple is developing 2 new versions of it, one with M2 and one with the M2 Pro chip. M2 Mac Mini. Codenamed J473, the new Mac Mini will be powered by the M2 chip, which is Apple's next-generation entry-level chip for Macs and iPads.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, obviously we all know that the M2 is the most logical step for, like, now. Like, as like, the next entry of, like, the baseline Mac chips, and maybe the iPad Pro and the iPad Air. Now, I would say that obviously we don't know if it's going to be called the M2, like it's the most logical name for it, but hey, we don't know. Anyways, just assuming that those two things are true, because like, I mean, it's the most logical next step, I would say that having a Mac Mini that has the M2 and the M2 Pro is absolutely insane, because like, these things are quite cheap. I like, literally, like a Mac Mini is like $799. So like for an M2, that's great. Including like the GPU increase, that if it's based on the A15, right, which it, like, I mean, quite logically would be. Again, another assumption, but it's a smart assumption. It means that like that device will be very, very powerful and will capture even more people that could just use that Mac Mini to like speed up their entire workflow, which is insane. And then you put the M2 Pro on top of that. Man, that's done. I mean, what is that going to cost? Maybe $1,200 bucks? $1,200 for a computer that outperforms literally like 80, if not 90% of all computers worldwide? Mental. Especially in that price range, right? And that's why I feel like the baseline M2 is literally slaughtering all the competition. It's literally like, it's not even close. The M2 Pro, or like, if it's going to be anything comparable to what we have with the M1 and the M1 Pro, although it gets into territory where you could get a decent PC, I still think that, especially if you look at performance per watt, it's not even close. Now you get into the M1 Max territory, and that price, obviously, now with the Mac Studio, I mean, for $2,000, right, you could build a decent PC. One that, especially if we go back to MSRP pricing, could definitely match the M1 Max performance. I still believe that it's still a little bit ahead, especially again into if we're looking into performance per watt, and if you're buying a laptop, for example, it's like not even close. Especially if you turn the the power source off, and I'm not talking about the battery, but the plug, right? So, like the M2 is the like nothing is going to sell for that price that even comes close to the performance. The M2 Pro, if it's anything that like the M1 is going to be, or was, like, still is, we are probably going to get performance that is very good, and especially for that price, very good, but you might be able to match that with a custom build. The M2 Max, probably still, again, if we go back to MSRP pricing with NVIDIA and all that stuff, yeah, I think you can build a decent PC for $2,000, but still, again, that performance per watt, the insane amount of extra, how do you call that, components for video rendering and like ProRes, it's mental. And obviously the M1 Ultra and the M2 Ultra eventually, not even close. Like, I don't think you can build a PC for that price that is going to outperform an M1 Ultra. But we're going to see. Like, I've not used it yet, but we're going to see. Anyways, to stay with the M2. The M2 is going to be such a banger, dude. Especially with that increase in GPU performance. If it's based on the A15, mental. I don't think anything is going to come close. Again, nothing is going to come close, especially not for that price range of $800. Maybe they put $100 dollars extra for the design. You never know. But I would say that it's, yeah, nothing is going to come close. That's going to come close. Anyways, M2 and M2 Pro options, wasn't that logical? Like, yeah, it's yeah, of course. Like, the exclusive is, I guess, that they have a source now confirming that it's coming into the next Mac Mini, the updated Mac Mini, which is the news, right? The news is not that there is a M2 coming. Like, that is not news because, like, obviously, like, like after that there's an M3. Oh wow, duh. But the news is that it's coming into a Mac Mini, and I feel like you could say it's kind of logical, but also, like, they could just, like what Quo is saying about the MacBook Air, they could have just put a how do you say that, an M1 in it, right? They could have done that. Apparently they're not going to do that, but anyways. I mean, yeah, what else are they going to do with the Pro chip? That's a good question, especially for the desktop computing in terms of Mac. Yeah, like, they're not putting it in the Mac Studio. So obviously the most logical step was to put it into a Mac Mini. Maybe even a consumer iMac 27-inch, if it's ever coming back, you never know. But yeah, I think this is decent. This is great, and it's going to be a great offering. Anyways.
Codenamed J473, the new Mac Mini will be powered by the M2 chip, which is Apple's next-generation entry-level chip for Macs and iPads. M2 will represent the first major upgrade to Apple's M family of chips since the introduction of the M1 in 2020. Internally known as Staten, M2 is based on the current A15 chip, while M1 is based on the A14 Bionic. Just like M1, M2 will feature an 8-core CPU, 4 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, but this time with a more powerful 10-core GPU. The new performance cores are codenamed Avalanche, and efficiency cores are known as Blizzard. M2 Mac Mini development is nearing completion, and its release date is expected to be announced sometime later this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, we had this discussion yesterday night, obviously. I'm not sure how smart it is to release the M2 right before or next let's say Mac Pro. That is, I don't know based on what. It probably is based on the M1, but it's just going to have a different marketing name, or it's going to be a completely new family, just like Xeon is like a step up, right? Which is disconnected from the like the other like professional chips, like the i9, the i7, whatever. These are all decent chips, right? But like Xeon is the god of all chips, just like Threadripper was. So they might do something like that, but it will probably be based on the same architecture as like the A14, right? Like the M1 is. So I'm not sure if it's best to do that, or maybe it is going to be based on the M2, right? The A15 then. In the Mac Pro, and then it would make more sense. They're skipping the entire first generation of architecture from like the M1 for the Mac Pro. They could do that. Makes more sense because, like, maybe in terms of professionals, obviously they will understand that the M2 is not going to be more powerful than the whatever chip is inside the Mac Pro. Obviously, they will do their research. It might look a little bit weird in headlines, right? It like, obviously, like, this company looks at every optic, all of them. So this is stuff that they're looking at. I'm not sure how they're going to handle this. So I'm not sure if this is coming this year. All sources are saying that it's coming this year. I don't know, but apparently it's finalized. Apparently it's ready. So Apple will have way smarter people than this guy right here. This guy right here that are thinking about this. Don't worry about that.
M2 Mac Mini development is nearing completion, and its release date is expected to be announced sometime later this year. M2 Pro Mac Mini. According to 9to5Mac sources, Apple had plans to introduce high-end versions of the current Mac Mini with the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips, but they were probably scrapped to make way for the Mac Studio. This time, Apple has also been working on another new Mac Mini, codenamed J474, that features the M2 Pro chip, a variant with 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, totaling a 12-core CPU versus the 10-core CPU of the current M1 Pro. Apple currently has no plans to release a version with the M2 Max or Ultra chips. Until then, the company will probably keep the Intel Mac Mini in the lineup. Last month, a Bloomberg report revealed that Apple may introduce new Apple Silicon Macs in June at WWDC 2022, so perhaps a new entry-level Mac Mini will be one of them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it sounds pretty logical, and I would say that this is definitely something that could happen. Again, I'm just not sure if it's going to happen this year. True and real, yeah. Pro Mac Mini, interesting. Definitely is. 12-core, isn't that the one Dylan DKT mentioned as well? Yeah. Yeah, he did. I feel like he mentioned it in like an iMac, right? So I'm still not convinced that the iMac is completely dead. I would say it is still coming somewhere down the line, but it's probably going to be a consumer / maybe pro iMac, but it will probably be a consumer-focused iMac, right? So, anyways, there's a lot that we still have to get into, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just focus here we go. And one of those topics is right here. Let's keep it pumping.